I never thought that day would be my last. At least not my last as the person I had been until then. It started like any other, slow, quiet, and heavy. The kind of morning that clings to your skin like fog, where something in the air feels off, though you can't name it. I'd been sick for months. The doctors called it complications, a vague word that never seemed to fully explain the pain in my chest, the fatigue that wrapped around me like a wet blanket. But I kept going, for my family, for the life I had built, for the version of myself that still hoped tomorrow would be better. That day, the pain changed. It wasn't sharper or more violent, just different, deeper, like something ancient was shifting inside me, like a part of me already knew what was coming. I remember lying down, just for a moment. I closed my eyes to rest, but my thoughts didn't drift off to sleep like they usually did. Instead, they became weightless, detached. It was then I heard it, a subtle silence, if that makes sense. Everything around me went still. No clocks ticking, no birds, no wind outside the window. Just stillness. And then, the darkness came. But it wasn't scary. Not cold or suffocating like the movies make it seem. It was soft, like velvet. I could feel myself sinking into it, gently. My body, which had ached for so long, suddenly felt light, as though I'd stepped out of a heavy coat I'd been wearing for years. And that's when I knew. I was dying. It's strange, how calm it was. I thought I'd panic, cry, beg for more time, but there was none of that. There was only a profound peace, the kind I never knew existed. I felt held, watched, safe. I wasn't alone. I didn't see anyone at first, but I sensed a presence, a loving, patient awareness surrounding me. Not judging, not hurrying, just waiting. There was no fear, only an overwhelming sense of being remembered, like I had come back to somewhere I had always belonged. And then, I saw it, my body, below me. I didn't scream or recoil. I just observed, the way my chest had stopped moving, the look of worry frozen on my face. I saw the room, the nurses rushing in, the alarms blaring faintly, someone calling my name, but it all felt far away, like watching a memory through a foggy window. And that's when I realized I wasn't gone. I had just stepped out of one layer of existence and into another. And though I didn't yet know where I was going, something inside me whispered, "This isn't the end." It never was. The stillness wrapped around me like a warm cocoon. No ticking clocks, no machines beeping, no breath, just silence. But it wasn't empty. It was alive, full of presence. The kind of silence that holds you, not one that leaves you alone. I was floating, or maybe standing. I can't quite say. There was no gravity as we know it, no direction, no time. Everything I had ever known about space and motion felt irrelevant. I didn't feel fear, not even curiosity, just an overwhelming sense of rightness, like I had stepped into a part of myself that had always been waiting. Then, a sound. Not a sound like we hear on Earth, not mechanical or sharp or human. It was more like a vibration, like a tone that went straight into my soul. It felt like the home I had long forgotten. Each note was like a memory I hadn't made yet. It made me want to weep and laugh at the same time. And then came the light. At first it was distant, like a candle in the fog, but it grew, not brighter in a painful way, but warmer, more intimate. It didn't just shine on me. It shone through me. I felt transparent, as if nothing about me could be hidden here. Every regret, every mistake, every wound, it was all visible. And yet, I wasn't ashamed, because that light, it didn't judge. It loved. I don't know how else to say it. The light knew me, not the way people know your name or your face. It knew everything. The laughter I'd shared with my daughter when she was little. The nights I cried silently so no one would hear. The thoughts I was proud of, and the ones I had buried deep. It knew all of it, and it stayed. It never flinched. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be seen and still completely, unconditionally loved. A voice, or something like it, emerged from the silence. Not with words, but in a way that was somehow clearer than speech. It said, "You are safe, you are loved, you are home." And I believed it. I didn't ask where I was. I didn't need to. I knew I wasn't in a hospital anymore. I wasn't in my body. I wasn't on Earth. I was in a place of origin, a place before language, a place where pain could not follow. And though I hadn't seen anyone yet, I felt them. The souls who loved me, the ones I had lost. They were near, so near. I wanted to stay. In that moment, nothing mattered. Not the life I had left, not the things undone or the people I had said goodbye to. The love here was complete, total. I felt more alive than I ever had in my earthly body. But then, the stillness shifted. Something was coming. A message. A moment. I didn't know it then, but soon I would be asked to choose, and that choice would carry more weight than I ever imagined. But before that, I simply rested. In the stillness, in the silence, in the peace of being remembered by something greater than myself. I don't remember the exact moment I separated from my body, only the sensation that I had somehow slipped out of something heavy and limiting. It was as if I had stepped out of a dense fog and into the clearest air I'd ever breathed. Except I wasn't breathing. I wasn't even moving, not in the way I understood motion. I was floating. There was no floor beneath me, no ceiling above, and yet there was structure, not physical, but energetic. It's hard to explain to those who haven't felt it. I wasn't falling, nor was I flying. I was simply suspended, held by something invisible but infinitely gentle. Then I looked down. It was the first real shock since the peace had settled over me. Below me, in a hospital bed, was a woman, pale, still, surrounded by nurses moving with desperate precision. Machines screamed alarms I could barely hear, muffled by the dimension I now occupied. And the woman, she looked familiar. It was me. I didn't panic. I didn't scream. But I felt something shift deep inside, like a thread snapping in the dark. A realization. I really died. That body was no longer mine, not in the way it had been. I felt no pain, no urgency to return. I simply watched, detached but not uncaring. I saw my daughter burst into the room, her face crumpled in horror, her voice breaking as she cried out for me. And beside her, my husband, frozen, like a statue of grief. I could feel their pain, but I couldn't reach them. I wanted to hold them, tell them I was okay, that I was right there. But no words came, no arms moved. Still, in that strange stillness, I sent them something. Not speech, not gesture, just pure love, direct from my soul to theirs. I don't know if they felt it then, but I hoped. I knew they would feel it eventually. Behind me, something shifted. A presence, powerful, calm, and deeply familiar. I turned without turning. There was no behind anymore. Space was fluid here, and there he was. I didn't know his name, but I recognized his soul. He wasn't anyone I had met in life, but I had known him forever. A guide, maybe. An angel. A soul brother. His light was softer than the great light I had felt earlier, more personal, more focused, like he was assigned to me. He didn't speak, yet I heard him clearly. You are not alone. You were never alone. And that was when I wept, not with tears, but with something deeper. My soul wept. All the years I had spent feeling unseen, abandoned, misunderstood, dissolved in an instant. Every lonely moment of my earthly life was rewritten by the truth of this presence. He reached out, not with hands, but with energy. He showed me memories, not mine, theirs. My daughter, at 4 years old, praying for my health. My husband, sitting by my hospital bed each night whispering, "Please stay." He showed me how deeply I was loved, even when I couldn't see it. I floated there, suspended between two worlds, watching my family ache for me, and yet being held by a love that transcended every sorrow I'd ever known. I asked, not with words, but with my whole being, "Am I gone forever?" And the answer came, gentle and profound. "Not yet. There is more for you to remember." I didn't understand it then, but I would. Soon. The moment I accepted I was no longer in my body, everything around me began to transform. The hospital room below faded, not like a dream dissolving, but like curtains gently being drawn back. I wasn't pulled away violently. I was invited, drawn by something far more powerful than gravity. It was love, living, breathing love, pulling me forward. And then I saw it. The light. Not a metaphor, not a bright bulb or a distant glow. This was a living light, a consciousness. It pulsed and shimmered, not just in front of me, but through me. It didn't blind me. It filled me. Every ounce of fear, regret, or sorrow I had carried was absorbed by it and replaced with peace, and not just peace, a knowing. I understood things I had never questioned. I remembered truths I didn't know I had forgotten. I was moving toward it, yet not moving at all. I was being drawn, as if my soul had its own current now, flowing toward its origin. The closer I got, the more I felt others, souls, presences, energies around me. I didn't see faces, but I recognized them. Some had walked with me in life. Others, I think they knew me from before. I wasn't afraid. There was a tunnel of sorts, though it wasn't a dark one. It was like moving through the inside of a star, radiant, infinite, alive. Colors that don't exist on Earth danced through the air. Music that didn't need instruments or language played all around me. The kind of sound you feel more than hear, like the echo of truth inside your chest. Then the memories came. My life unfolded around me, not like a film, but like I was stepping into moments. I felt what I had felt then, and more. I felt what others had felt around me. Every kind word I had ever spoken echoed like light. Every moment I had made someone feel less than what they were weighed heavily, not with guilt, but with clarity. It wasn't judgment. It was understanding. Deep, raw, loving understanding. No one condemned me. No one scolded. I stood in the presence of pure truth, and I was still loved, completely. At one point I slowed. I sensed a gate, not a physical one, but a threshold. Beyond it, something waited, something ancient and sacred. I was so close I could feel the breath of eternity on my soul, but something held me. The guide, the soul who had met me earlier, was there again, not blocking me, but waiting. And then, she came. Not she, in the earthly sense, but a presence so maternal, so vast, that my entire soul trembled. She was the embodiment of every mother who had ever loved. She was earth and heaven, wind and water. She was the divine in her most tender form. She wrapped around me, not physically but fully. I felt seen. I felt held. I felt safe. And I heard her, not in my ears but in my being. You are home, but there is more to know before you choose. I didn't understand what choice she meant. I thought the journey was complete. I thought I had crossed over, but the most painful and beautiful in part was still to come. As I stood in the warmth of that light, surrounded by a presence more tender than anything I'd known on Earth, I felt another shift, subtle at first, like a breeze in a still forest. Then, unmistakable, someone was approaching, not with footsteps, not from a direction. It was more like a soul calling to mine across time, and suddenly, I knew. It was her. I didn't have to see her face to know. My breath, though I no longer breathed, caught in my chest. The ache I had carried for years, the wound that never truly healed, pulsed with life. My mother, she had died when I was just 23. Cancer. Quick. Brutal. I had never stopped mourning her. I had whispered to her in the dark when no one could hear. I had longed for her arms every time I faced something hard. And now, she was here. I turned, or maybe I didn't, and she was simply there. Not younger, not older, not sick, not aged, just her, radiant, whole. Her eyes sparkled in a way I had never seen, even in life. But it wasn't her appearance that undid me. It was the love radiating from her. It hit me like a wave, love so complete, so fierce, so true that it shattered every defense I had ever built. She didn't speak at first. She didn't need to. Her soul wrapped around mine, and I crumbled in her presence. I wept, not with tears, but with every cell of my being. I had missed her so deeply, and now she stood before me, alive, more alive than I had ever seen her. When she finally spoke, it wasn't with words. It was something deeper. I never left you. I felt all the times I had called out to her, and she had been there. Every moment I had whispered her name, every dream I had dismissed as wishful thinking. She had been close. I just couldn't see her. We embraced. Again, not with bodies, but with soul light. And in that embrace, all my pain evaporated. The loneliness, the guilt, the silent prayers, gone. Just love. Only love. Behind her, others began to appear. A grandmother I barely remembered from childhood. An old friend I had lost in a car accident. Even a pet. Yes, my childhood dog came bounding forward, his joy unmistakable. They were all there. Not shadows, not echoes. Real. Each presence brought a wave of memory, of warmth. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't hallucinating. I was home. I was known. And then, From behind the group, a light brighter than the others began to approach. Not blinding, but sovereign, ancient, loving beyond measure. I knew without knowing. This was a being of immense power, not male or female, not bound by time or title, just divine. And as the being drew near, my mother stepped back, not in fear, but in reverence. She smiled at me, and in that smile, I saw something I hadn't expected. Sadness. Not for me, for what was coming. I turned toward the being, my soul trembling with anticipation. And then, from that brilliant presence, came a single, soul-piercing message. You have a choice. When the being of light said, "You have a choice," the entire realm seemed to pause. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a command. It was an invitation, sacred, heavy, and drenched in love. I felt the weight of it ripple through my soul, like a bell being struck in the center of the universe. And then, I was somewhere else. I didn't walk there. I didn't feel movement at all. One moment I was surrounded by loved ones, and the next, I stood in a space that defied every earthly description. A place I later came to understand as the room of the choice. There were no walls, but it felt enclosed. No floor, but I stood. No ceiling, yet the space rose endlessly above. The entire room shimmered with a soft glow, like moonlight dancing on water, yet warmer, wiser. Every particle seemed aware, like the space itself was listening, and I wasn't alone. Across from me stood the being, not looming, not demanding, just present. Beside it were others, guides, maybe elders, maybe pieces of myself that had long been asleep. Their forms were light and motion, and yet their presence was weighty, not intimidating, but unmistakably divine. They surrounded a kind of table, or maybe a portal, something circular, humming with energy. Images flowed across its surface like memories. My life, my daughter's laugh, my husband's tired smile, the nights I felt lost, the moments I brought someone else peace, every choice, every thought, every ripple I had ever caused. And then, images I didn't recognize, futures that hadn't happened yet. My daughter crying in her room, older now, my husband holding a letter I'd written, the absence I would leave behind if I stayed. I didn't want to look, but I did, and the pain pierced through the peace I'd found. Then came the words, not from mouths, but from every direction, every fiber of that space. You may stay, or you may return. The choice is yours. But if you return, it will hurt. My soul trembled. I wanted to stay. God, I wanted to stay. The peace, the love, the absence of sorrow. It was everything I had ever longed for. I was home, whole, healed. And yet I knew I was being asked something far greater than a decision for comfort. I was being asked to remember my purpose. In that space, things became clear. Earth was a school. Messy, painful, beautiful, sacred. We forget who we are there. We suffer. We love. We break. We rise. And every soul that comes to Earth chooses growth, even if they forget why. My heart, or what remained of it, was torn. And then I saw her, my daughter, not as she was when I left, but as she would be if I stayed gone. Her eyes lost, her spirit bruised. I watched her reach for me in dreams, whispering, "Come back, Mommy." I fell to my knees. "Can I help her if I return?" I asked the being. And the answer came, solemn but kind. Yes, but not without cost. I wanted guarantees, that she would be okay, that I wouldn't suffer again, that I wouldn't lose myself. But no such promises were made. Only this: you chose to love, and love asks everything. And that was when I knew I would go back, not for comfort, not because I had to, but because I loved. Because even though I would hurt, even though I would carry scars, I couldn't leave them yet, not without finishing what I had begun. The being stepped closer, its light wrapping around me like a final embrace, and I heard the words that would echo through the rest of my life. You chose to return, but it will hurt. And then, I fell. The moment the decision was made, the light began to withdraw, not in anger, not in rejection, but with a gravity that pulled my soul inward. Like a wave receding after kissing the shore for the last time, I had chosen to return. And as that divine presence enveloped me one final time, I heard it, clearly, unmistakably, intimately. You chose to return, but it will hurt. The words didn't come with fear or threat. They were a sacred truth, not a warning, but a preparation, a tender whisper from the deepest love, letting me know. The path I'd chosen was one of pain, yes, but also purpose. Then came the descent. It wasn't physical. It was energetic, like being drawn downward through layers of sound, light, and memory. Each layer carried more density, more weight, more humanness. The peace of the upper realms began to dim, not in cruelty, but in contrast. I was remembering what it meant to feel limited again, to be bound by flesh, by time, by sorrow. I wanted to hold on to the light, to my mother's face, to the embrace of the divine, but they were already fading. Still, they weren't gone. Somehow, I knew they would always be with me, just not as vividly, not as completely, like a melody heard only in the silence between thoughts. The closer I got to my body, the more pain I felt. Not physical pain yet, but emotional. The heaviness of the world came crashing in. Grief, fear, doubt, the endless noise of earthly life. I felt it like a storm pressing against my soul. Then came the re-entry. It wasn't graceful. It was jarring. Suddenly, I was slammed back into my body, and everything hurt. Every nerve was on fire. Every cell screamed. It was as if my body had forgotten how to contain me, and I had forgotten how to be contained. I gasped. Or maybe they forced me to breathe. I don't know. All I know is that sound came rushing back. Beeping machines, voices shouting, hands on my chest, the weight of gravity pinning me down. I tried to open my eyes, but they were heavy. I tried to speak, but my throat burned. I was alive, painfully, desperately alive. And for a moment, I regretted everything. I had left perfection for this. I had left peace for this. My body felt foreign, like a cage. My soul pounded against it, not from fear, but from sheer shock. I wept, not outwardly, but deep inside, because I knew what I had given up. And yet, I remembered the voice. You chose to return. Even through the agony, I clung to that, because with the pain came purpose. And though the next days and weeks would be filled with confusion, silence, and isolation, I would hold on to the memory of the light, the embrace of my mother, the truth that love never dies, and the whisper that would echo in every quiet moment of my new life. It will hurt, but you are not alone. Waking up was worse than I ever imagined. Not because I was afraid. I had already passed through death, but because I wasn't ready to be back. My body, once a familiar home, now felt like a prison. Every inch of me screamed. Muscles twitched, joints ached. My chest felt like it had been cracked open and filled with lead, but none of that compared to the emotional pain. I opened my eyes and saw bright lights, a ceiling fan, tubes, machines. I heard a nurse gasp and rush to the monitor. Somewhere someone shouted, "She's awake," and voices followed, busy, urgent, clinical, but I didn't care about any of it. All I wanted was to go back to the light, back to my mother's arms, back to the silence that spoke louder than words. Instead, I was wrapped in noise and confusion and aching flesh. It felt like being reborn, but not in the miraculous way people describe. It was violent, harsh, lonely. My family came. They wept with relief. My daughter clung to my hand like it was her lifeline. My husband kissed my forehead over and over, whispering, "Thank you. Thank God. Thank you for staying." And I smiled, because I was grateful. But inside, I felt broken. They didn't know what I had left behind. They didn't know the weight I now carried. It wasn't just the trauma of nearly dying. It was the ache of remembering heaven, and then being torn from it. It was knowing peace so complete, and waking up to bills, pain, time. At night, I cried in silence. I missed her, my mother. I could still feel her warmth, her voice echoing, "I never left you." But the veil between us had grown thick again. The clarity I had felt up there, the certainty of being loved and seen, now flickered like a distant star. I tried to talk about it once. With a nurse, maybe. I don't remember who. I said I'd seen things, felt things. She smiled kindly and said, "It's probably the medication. Near death can do strange things to the brain." That's when I stopped speaking, because I realized this journey wasn't for them. It wasn't a story for proof or approval. It was a message, something sacred I was meant to carry, even if no one believed me. Still, The pain didn't go away, not just in my body, in my spirit. I would wake up and feel the weight of earth pressing down. I wanted to run away from the noise, from the demands, from the forgetting that came with being human again. But then, one night, I dreamed. I was back in the light, only for a second. I saw my mother's face, and she didn't speak this time. She just looked at me, eyes full of strength and sorrow. And I heard, not from her, but from within. You came back for a reason, and the pain is part of the gift. When I woke, I was crying, but something had shifted. I still missed the light. I still longed for the stillness, but I began to see the purpose inside the pain. Each moment of discomfort reminded me I had chosen this. I had returned not for myself, but for the ones I loved, for those still searching, for those still afraid. And maybe, just maybe, for you, coming back from death isn't like flipping a switch. It's not as if you wake up enlightened, glowing with answers, walking around like a sage. No, it's far messier than that. The changes were slow, subtle, and deeply personal, but they were real. The first thing I noticed was how much louder the world seemed, not just in volume, in intensity, emotions, chaos, noise. Everything felt overstimulating, almost unbearable. Supermarkets made me dizzy. Crowds drained me. Watching the news felt like being punched in the soul. I had known peace. I had been peace. And now, I was walking through a world that had forgotten what peace even was. But then something else began to emerge. Something unexpected. Alongside the sensitivity came a tenderness I couldn't explain. I started feeling people differently. It wasn't just empathy. It was like I could see beneath their words, sense their ache, their need to be seen. I would look into someone's eyes, a cashier, a neighbor, a stranger, and know they were carrying something heavy, and I couldn't help but love them. That was the most profound change. I loved people differently. I used to judge, silently, of course, the way we all do. I used to carry grudges. I used to think some people didn't deserve my kindness, that some pain was unforgivable. But now, I see it all differently. I see broken people doing their best. I see children hiding inside adult bodies. I see fear dressed as anger. I see myself in everyone. Because in that place, beyond life, we are all one. We are different songs from the same voice, different faces of the same love. I also stopped fearing death. Completely. That's not to say I look forward to it. I cherish every breath now, but I don't fear it. I know, without doubt, that death is not the end. It's a return, a homecoming, a remembering, and that has changed how I live. I don't chase things anymore, not like I used to. I still care about life, about my family, my passions, but I don't cling. I don't measure my worth by what I own or what I've achieved. I measure it by how much love I give, how often I stop to truly see someone, how willing I am to be present even when it hurts. And it still hurts sometimes. There are days I miss the light so much it aches. Days I wonder why I said yes, why I came back, why I chose pain over peace. But then my daughter crawls into my bed in the middle of the night, scared from a bad dream, and I hold her close. I feel her heart against mine, and I remember, this is why. Or I meet someone, a stranger, who starts crying as they tell me about losing their spouse or their child. And without thinking, I take their hand and say, they're still with you. You're not alone. And they look at me like I just handed them air to breathe. That's why I came back. To bring just a sliver of that light into this dark world. To remind others, and myself, that we are more than this body, this pain, this brief flicker of life. We are eternal, and the love we give is the only thing we take with us. If there's one reason I share this story, it's for you. The one grieving, aching, wondering if there's more than this pain. The one who wakes up feeling empty. Who stares at a photo of someone they lost and whispers, "Where are you?" I know that ache. I've seen the other side, and I want to tell you something. Something I would have given anything to know before I died. They are not gone, and neither are you. The love you shared didn't disappear. It didn't get buried or burned or broken. Love is the one thing that crosses over. It lives on, stronger, purer, untouched by time. I felt it. I stood in it. I became it. And so did they. Whoever you lost, they're not lost at all. They're just in a place your eyes can't reach, but your heart can. That tug in your chest when you're still, that wave of peace that comes in the middle of your tears, that sudden warmth when you think of them, that's them. They're still with you, just in a different form. And you're still here for a reason. I know that's hard to hear when the pain feels unbearable. I know what it's like to beg for the suffering to end. I came back from heaven knowing full well how heavy this life can be, but I also came back with something else, a truth that cannot be shaken. You are not alone. There are hands holding you right now, even if you can't feel them. There are angels, real ones, surrounding your steps. There are guides and souls and ancestors whispering to you in dreams, in music, in memories. And more than anything, there is a light that never leaves you. I saw that light. I stood in it. And I brought a piece of it back with me, so I could tell you, everything you're feeling matters. Every tear is sacred. Every breath is a miracle. And no matter how lost you feel, you are still deeply, endlessly loved. The pain? It's real, but it's not the end of the story. Your story, just like mine, is still unfolding. And you have a choice too, whether you realize it or not. Each day you can choose to believe in love again, in connection, in meaning. You can choose to look for the light and to be the light for someone else. That's why I came back, not to escape pain, but to carry light into it, to remind others, and maybe, especially you, that the darkness is not permanent, that healing is real, that your soul came here for something sacred, and that even in your worst moments, you chose to live. So hold on, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because the day will come when you remember, not with your mind, but with your spirit, that this life, with all its ache and beauty, is a gift, a sacred chapter in the eternal story of your soul. And one day, when your time comes, when you too return home, they'll be there, all of them, with arms wide open, with love you cannot imagine, and you'll hear the voice, just like I did. You chose to return, but it was worth it.